broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
There we go. Here, you've always got the best picks for music. Guys, if you like the music every single week, it's all this one pick. Just scouring anything that has magic in the title, that's on this one. Because we're talking about The Magicians, welcome to episode 10 of your Magicians After Show right here on AfterBuzz TV. As always, my name is Ty Matthews. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Ty Matthews PMA. And as always, my stunning and talented co-host. Who are you? Where can they find you?
Oh, well, thank you very much. Hey, how's it going? I'm Kari Lane. You can find me online at Kari D. Lane.
Hey guys, I'm Samantha Benitz. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Samantha_Benitz, Benitz.
Hi, I'm Adrian Snow. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrian Snow. That's MSADRINSNOW.
And we're joined by a very, very special guest tonight. He's worked on many, many different TV shows, but more importantly, he is the director of tonight's episode, Homecoming, Mr. Joshua Butler, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have you in. We've had some very, very special guests over the course of this season, so we're excited to talk about this episode. First of all, this is kind of, I always kick it off this. How'd your involvement with The Magicians come about? Were you familiar with the source material at all?
I actually hadn't heard about the books until I knew that this series was being planned. I just have to stop and say that my microphone might actually be working.
I was wondering about that. Can we check on that?
Being a director, I noticed these things.
I should hope so.
I don't hear myself.
Can we, in the booth, can we check on that, y'all? Just right quick.
Yeah, I feel we're picking you up on our mics.
I feel right, we're all in the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, there you are.
There he is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that will be take two.
Let's rewind.
Yes.
Involvement with The Magicians.
Take two on live. Yes.
Yes.
I quickly researched it, and I discovered Lev Grossman's books, and they're amazing. And there turned out to be, when I talked about being up for the job, there turned out to be a lot of incredibly passionate fans who love the books, and I got up to speed very quickly, and I went in for the interview, and I was really responsive to the idea that magic was being used not necessarily for the old school Harry Potter kind of magic superhero kind of way, but it was being used as kind of a metaphor for growing up, coming of age, and being different, being special, and the idea of sex, drugs, and magic really appealed to me very much as a storyteller. So I loved it. I just thought this was such a cool idea, and I think that they've John McNamara and Sera Gamble developed the show for television, kept what was in the books, which is this very kind of honest approach to what is traditionally a sci-fi fantasy genre, which I think is great.
I love that you put it that way. Sex, drugs, and magic. That's such a for this show.
All
that's
encompassing,
such a
yes.
perfect triumvirate, especially for this episode, which we saw.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yes.
All about it.
Yeah. How did you come to direct this episode specifically?
Well, as an episodic television director, a lot of people don't know, the kind of way it shakes down, because episode directors go from show to show, and you're booked episode to episode as the seasons kind of progress. So some of it has to do with availability, some of it has to do with just kind of when your episode kind of falls in the mix on their end of where they want the directors to sort of lay out. And so, and sometimes you get booked for an episode like this one, where I knew I was directing episode 10, but I didn't know what the script was going to be. And a lot of times you don't know what you're going to get until you get to your office on the first day of prep, and they say, "Here's what you're directing." So that's what happened here, and I got incredibly lucky because I got a great script. Henry Alonzo Myers, who's one of the executive producers, he wrote this amazing script, which is kind of an extrapolation of about 5 pages in Lev's book, talking about Alice's family. And what they did was they expanded that into the full story that you saw tonight with Alice's parents, and the sort of the idea that I think, which is great, that a family of magicians can just be as screwed up as any other kind of dysfunctional family, and they're instead of using magic the way that sane, kind of well-adjusted, excited, wonderfully creative people would use magic. These are people who are very fallible and very vulnerable to kind of the sort of boredom that can arise from the use of magic, which was a great kind of comedic principle, and also gave great insight into Alice as a character.
Definitely, yeah, and we'll get into more specifics, but I want to talk about, just general reactions to this episode. What did you guys think of Homecoming?
Awesome!
Great.
Very fun.
I'm all about the sex.
Okay.
So, like,
if we've learned anything.
If you've learned anything about Adrian Snow, my mother would be so proud right now. No, I thought it was wonderful, and I thought that they touched on a lot of different things. There was, I have thoughts on the whole Margot Elliott storyline.
Okay.
But overall, I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed the episode.
I agree. It was a steamy episode. That was like kind of the term for it all. And I thought it was really cool that we got to see a little bit of Alice's backstory, given that she's so tame and demure. And then to see her family is just more outlandish with their bodies and their sexuality and everything. And it was kind of interesting to see how different you can be even as like a black sheep of the family, but how much you do have similarities, and how the people you're with now can also be like family. And I really like that about this episode.
Yeah.
I thought it was very fun exploration into the other aspects of sex, because we had the other like fun, playful, we just got together, and this one was like, no, here's things that you gotta work out, and it's not like all perfect like you think it is all the time.
The passionate versus the companion.
Regularity of it in a way too, and then even just how Alice is almost like the opposite. I would say add on to Demure, how you would say uptight almost, or no, you could say she's uptight.
Always the freaks.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, that's what your family's like. So, I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely, and especially after it does seem. After these last couple episodes, it seems like we were getting real heavy, real dark, so this it seemed like this episode sort of lightened things up a little bit.
Definitely.
Sorry, I was gonna say, and then we didn't even mention how Penny's storyline of it kept a little dark in that, and that was fun, just in a different kind of way.
Yeah, definitely.
There's some
visually
with the Julia and Katie storyline as well.
Yes, that too.
Oh yeah, exactly, definitely. But there was a lot of good humor, a lot of great lines in this. I think I'm falling more and more in love with Elliot and Margot's dynamic. Just that line, got these for you, bitch. That's my favorite line. I love that shit.
Yeah. That's another t-shirt.
Exactly.
We've had quite a few t-shirt ideas.
Yeah.
They're listening.
Hot topic.
Yeah.
Get on it.
It sells
Syfy,
itself,
you know.
guys.
Call us first.
So just in general, what were some of kind of your favorite moments of this episode? Once you get that script, what are the things that you're kind of excited about when you read it?
Well, this was just chock full. I mean, it was the first. I was
honest.
looking at it going, oh my god, the Netherlands, number one. Like the first time, you turn the page, you're like, okay, it's the first time we're in the Netherlands. So we have to find a location, we have to figure out a visual style for it, we have to figure out a way that we're going to approach it. Arjun, who's awesome, unfortunately we were shooting this in very cold weather, so we had to figure out what he would be wearing, and would he do his own diving into fountains, and how would we create the fountains to dive into, and how could we heat the water so he could be more comfortable. So there's that whole thing, and then it was like, oh, okay, you turn the page, oh, there's an orgy, okay. All right, I've never directed that before.
Sure.
So we're in Vancouver, so we have to find, dozens of people who are willing to participate in our scene. And my assistant director was wonderful, Peter Dashkovitz, we call him Dash. He was in charge of making sure that everybody was comfortable and we were having a good time. But in terms of choreography, when you have that many people and you're trying to stage a scene like that, it's a very complex task as well. And then obviously with the Margolin thing, it was that was fun. But it's like, okay, I have to direct Summer in the same scene playing a character with Summer, so you have to figure out when you're going to do your split screens. You have to find a body double that's going to work, for the over-the-shoulder shots. You have to figure out all those things that you basically can do to sell that illusion. And and then of course Jade and Stella, their storyline and the Free Traders, Beowulf, and that whole, we had to cast the Free Traders, and we had to basically get that whole sequence, how they were going to emerge from the world behind the door, essentially, and that whole, how that was all going to work out. So exactly. So it was just that took a lot of visual effects kind of consultations, and so Rachel O'Toole, the production designer, is great. She designed so many physical objects, and then we could use those and as props and as production design elements, and then visual effects, with our visual effects team. So it's just a lot. And then of course at the end of the day, it's really just a human story about Quentin and Alice, which for me was the most kind of incredibly emotionally resonant story. I think Kari touched on it, the idea that it's not just your normal TV kind of let's look at sex in a very kind of playful and kind of superficial way.
Yeah.
Let's dive into it. Let's say, okay, here's this is what happens after Happily Ever After. I mean, these are the conversations that you have to figure out how things like this work, and that was again very refreshing to see in the script and to have the chance to do that on a sci-fi fantasy show. It's like genre television doesn't usually go this deep. So this was cool to be able to get into the personal stuff, the family dynamic, the dynamics of lovers who are trying to please one another, etc. It's just cool stuff just to be able to do that on the Syfy channel, the network that brought you Sharknado.
Exactly.
It's like very cool.
Let's talk about that dynamic a little bit. Yeah, let's talk about kind of the interpersonal relationship between Quentin and Alice, not only kind of learning more about each other sexually, but also kind of this element of insecurity, when you think about Quentin's sex dream that had Julia in it, and it's kind of his...
What was Alice supposed to be in that section?
She's Khaleesi from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Yeah, I threw my nerd card real fast on that one.
I saw Princess Leia. I'm like, who's the other?
It's been a
Slave
long time
Leia.
since I've seen Khaleesi
In clothes?
Right,
No, I'm
right.
just kidding. I'm just
She
kidding.
wore that blue outfit.
I'm just making a joke.
Yeah, she talks
But
about her
wait,
dragons, yeah.
We were kind of
Okay,
talking
we're
about this a little bit before. So yes, on your Twitter account, Josh, it has fanboys. So how fun was it to have these fan moments?
That was an incredibly fun scene, and yes, I mean it's funny because in talking about the script, it's like there's so many cool elements that I even forget about, because it's like, oh, that was its own, discussion, and what was interesting about that discussion is, of all things, copyright issues, in terms of.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So we had to figure out how close we could get the Indiana Jones costume, the Khaleesi costume, and the Princess Leia costume to the actual thing without it being, kind of a copyright infringement issue. So, I mean, that's the type of discussion I get to have as a director. It's like, so as much of the fanboy in me as I was going to go all out, and Henry, the writer, is also a huge fanboy. So we were just having fun with it. But, you do run into those pesky kind of, practical issues.
Yeah.
But I think we got close.
Copyright?
But
What?
I'm just very happy that we got close enough, to where you at least recognized who we were. going for. You know, yeah.
We are.
Yes,
Fanboys
at least
and
we
fangirls
could
up here all the
we
time.
could do the hat with Jason
And the
Kari.
whip.
Yeah, and then the whip. Yeah, I mean that at least goes. Oh, that must be Indiana Jones. Even though it's not
Yeah.
exactly the same.
Princess Leia's.
So yeah, so
I thought the Slave Leia one though. I'm like, wow, that looked a lot like it. I mean, it'd be one of those
Yeah.
you'd have to see it side by side and really see the difference.
You know, there's
Right.
a discussion actually about Princess Leia's hairstyle because that's actually we went for the actual hairstyle in that sequence, but everyone seems to remember the
Buns.
The iconic
bun.
buns,
Exactly.
yep.
So,
But they
but
weren't.
technically, there you go. As a fanboy, you would know that technically that was not the hairstyle for that particular
Scene.
Yes.
right.
outfit. So yeah.
Well, it's like I've done cosplay, and as long as you have the basics, most people go, yeah, sure. So
Right.
I think you
Right.
definitely.
The idea.
But
Yeah,
if we
sure.
put the buns, people might have said something. You know, they might have said,
Yeah.
"Wait a minute, it's the wrong,
Yeah.
hair with the wrong."
Right.
Yeah.
They would have.
Yeah, you would have said something. Yeah.
So yeah, so as fun as that scene was and as hilarious as that scene was, when Quentin tells Alice about it, she does kind of get a little bit weird about this infatuation that he's had with Julia, you know, and he tries to break it down. but-
Understandably.
Sure. So what do you guys think of this whole dynamic?
It's just a sex dream. You know?
Right.
I once had a sex dream where, well, it wasn't a sex dream. It was John Hamm drove me around town in like a Fisher Price.
No,
Rolls Royce. It was weird.
That's
fair.
sounds like a nice dream. John Hamm. Was he
What I'm
wearing a
trying to
suit?
say- Yes, he was.
Yeah,
it's a Don Draper we're talking
Yeah.
It wasn't a sex dream, but just that dreams are weird.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, like stuff happens and
Doesn't mean
It's
anything.
like he says, people are naked,
Yeah.
animals are smoking cigarettes.
you know, hey,
exactly.
my first sex dream involved being in Central Park. So like
Okay.
I remember it vividly, and it was a weird dude. So I totally get where I get some of the. I'm being too honest tonight. Some of the jealousy from Alice, but I just get really self-conscious. But with that said, I mean, I don't think why would she be surprised by that? She's aware that Quentin had feelings for Julia, but you know, it's just kind of like running into your boyfriend's ex. You're like, oh hey, yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
nice to meet you. I don't care. You know?
Yeah, to Alice's defense, it kind of seemed like, oh, if he still has her on his mind, then maybe that's his conscience speaking.
Right.
So I think she was kind of going in that direction, like, oh, she's still kind of a part of the dream, and why is it not just me after we've, consummated this relationship multiple times? So I'm sure she was kind of going that way. Of course, but that's how women want to think. They want to feel like they're the only one in the world, as Rihanna said. But it's like, I really think at the bottom of the day, or at the end of the day, I'm sorry, is that these two have such a strong connection. I feel like their relationship is going to transcend all of this. And even so, I think that they'll also be friends with Julia in the end. Like, I have a feeling that Julia will come into play a little bit later just because that was an unrequited love. And because he didn't ever get to see that to the end. If those feelings are returned, then that may change things. But because Alice has been there this whole time and they've already established this connection and relationship, that it's not going to die out that easily. So I like that scene a lot.
Sure.
Well, I feel like it just goes with the general theme of the episode that it's a relationship issue
Right.
that comes up, and luckily they talk about it.
Totally.
She exexpresses that it bothers her, and then he talks about it. Yay! Because it's one of those.
Communication.
Yes, which
It's the
we've
key
talked
to
about
every
before.
relationship.
Yeah. Because if she just was like, "Oh, really," and just stewed about it and didn't
Right.
talk about it, and then nothing would be solved. And then he didn't get like super defensive. He was just being honest. Like,
Yeah.
no, this is our relationship. This was the history. That's it. It's like, yes.
It's nice with the Magicians. They show a very adult perspective, even though the characters are in college. And I watch Vampire Diaries, and sometimes I'll be watching and I'll be like, "Are you serious? Like, how old are you guys now? Aren't you supposed to be like 25, 26 by now? Not just in real life, but
Right.
in the actual show."
Right.
Because it's just like there's a certain point as an adult that you just have to, and I know not everyone gets there, but you have to learn how to communicate with people in your life in an adult manner and say like, hey, I have these feelings. This is when you say that, it affects me this way. And I know not everyone gets there, but it's nice to see with this show especially, even if it falls apart next week, that they do have those moments, even with like Penny and Katie, you know.
Sure. And it's funny that you mentioned Vampire Diaries. Josh, you've directed several episodes of Vampire Diaries.
11, yes.
just a handful.
So, was there anything that you picked up along your your time with that show that you brought to the table here?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, they're very different shows. I think, as Adrian pointed out. I mean, I think this is a show where it gets very real and honest, and kind of gets into those areas of relationships that the Vampire Diaries kind of stays away from, because Vampire Diaries, I think, has a kind of a larger than life quality, and there's a lot of epic emotion and just big feelings and a lot going on, and every week there's breakups and makeups and so much mythology that it's really like that larger than life thing, so which is great and I love it, but this is like going very, very, taking like a scalpel and kind of getting deep into the kind of the very precise nuances of relationships, and what's so great about the show, and you were talking about it earlier, it's like there's a very kind of genre element to the idea of sex magic, and yet what's so clever about this particular storyline is that the reason that sex magic exists and why Quentin and Alice have to use it is because Penny is in the Netherlands and they're trying to get him back. But of course, what that requires is them to figure out their relationship issues so that they can actually consummate their love at the same time. And that's the thing that brings Penny back. So it's just a clever use of genre principles to also then allow for some real life relatable themes, and so in a way, on different levels, on different kind of emotional levels, the Vampire Diaries does the same type of thing in terms of trying to use the genre and the fantasy elements and the sci-fi elements and the vampire basic vampire mythology as a kind of a metaphor for romance and for coming of age, etc. So just two separate ways of dealing with the same kind of concept, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It does work on this very kind of grounded level, but also, like you said, with Penny being in the Netherlands on a very, very different fantastical level. But we do see, as Alice and Quentin are trying to figure out a way to bring Penny back, they encounter Joe, this traveler that Alice's mother is
sexually
familiar with, who is like not only this
adaptable
like
anatomy.
he's a Swiss Army knife. He's a Swiss Army knife of a man or of a being. I mean, and
good dialogue there. That was funny.
He's this magical traveler with this impossible to pronounce name, but at the same time he's kind of Alice and Quentin's like sex therapist at this point. We see him like pantomiming and teaching Quentin.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
I was like,
the little leading by example he was doing.
What is that?
Right. Yeah.
We actually have so much footage of that because we just had them go just improvise on and on about and I think in the script Henry had written in the background we see Joe and some horrible gesture trying to explain the basics of sex magic, and it just was hysterical. So I mean we could literally have like a whole outtakes reel of like all the ad libs they did.
YouTube, later.
I don't know. I don't know.
Sci-Fi Channel's website,
Channel, yes. I call on them to go into our archives of dailies and find all that. It just I couldn't even say cut. Like there's some takes where they just went on, and I was like, oh my god, this is so funny. I couldn't even stop, even though I knew that.
That's what I was going to ask you. So how do you go about perfecting a scene? Do you shoot it multiple times and kind of watch it back to decide how it looks or how you want it to look? Or what's your process like?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Although in TV, everything moves incredibly fast.
Right.
Like if on a feature film schedule, you have time to really explore, and improvise and take your time with scenes. In TV, you pretty much have to get it right the first time. And you have to rehearse it very quickly. You have to put it on speed very quickly. You have to light it. You have to shoot it because you're shooting 6, 7, 8 pages of a script a day. And just by contrast, feature films usually shoot 1 to 2 pages a day. So, so there's a lot more time, but then of course they have a lot more money. And then TV episodes usually do. So it's I try to keep it as free as possible and as where we can explore on set, where it's not like we're rigidly, just shooting storyboards, but it's definitely a high stress, fast paced environment.
Yeah, no pressure at all. Get it right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that was one of those scenes where basically the script said, "Oh, please improvise," and so we're like, "Yeah, okay.
Have a little fun with
Let's
it."
have fun."
Might as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where that came out of. I mean,
Yeah.
there were a lot of
clamps.
different ones. There was this one, and there's so many. It was just like, oh my god, it was funny.
Oh man.
With the humor that's in the show, are there ever moments where anyone behind the camera or in front of the camera is just like, hold up, like holding that laugh in and just like, it's like, guys, quiet, we're rolling.
Yes, a lot of times.
Okay.
A lot of times.
Nice.
Yes, especially this show. I mean, with Tom Amandes and Judith Hogue, who
Tom
play the
Amandes.
Paradise. Yeah, I know, from Everwood.
DePaul.
Yes. Yeah.
Alumni rep.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
very good. Yeah, I was a big fan of Everwood, so I was happy that he
that's one.
yeah, and then Judith Hogue is great. You may remember from the Ninja Turtles film.
Wait.
The
April?
first one. Mom. From
Okay.
the early
From that, the real ones.
the original,
the
real
yeah,
turtles.
Not the other
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly, not the CGI turtles.
The OG turtles.
Yeah, the OG turtles.
Yeah, OG.
But
For life.
no, but Judith's been in so many things. And Tom, they have such distinguished careers. But they, some of their, the whole goat penis thing. I mean, yeah, I don't think anybody on set could keep it together.
Quentin's
off camera.
face said it all. Like, please
I
get
know,
this
I know.
away from.
I think
He's like, you haven't left without touching your.
my favorite line of the whole episode is "You've barely touched your penis."
Yes, which is actually, and Henry would say this too. That was actually a Tom Amandes ad lib during rehearsals.
Amazing.
Oh, there you
so,
go.
yeah, it was.
So brainstorming on the go works.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
it
gonna
does.
take
It
it.
does absolutely. When you work with great actors,
Yeah.
great
Sure.
actors,
Great minds.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've talked about the sex magic, how it's kind of in pursuit of bringing Penny home. Penny's stuck in the Netherlands trying to find that fountain as he's being chased down by these locals who we find out are kind of mercenaries of the beast.
Potentially.
Yeah. They found alternate
Are we
employment.
going on a penny? I wasn't done with Alice. And
Oh, get into
I
it.
want to add one
Get
last
into
thing
it.
too.
I just want to say that I was very happy to see the female orgasm being discussed on television because it is never discussed on television. Not in a realistic way of like, I am not getting mine. And I'm sure everyone's out there, oh, Adrian's feminist. Yes, I am. But whatever.
Get into it.
Sex is good. So it was fun to have that moment of like, oh wow, they're really gonna break it down, and Alice is gonna have a really truthful moment with Quentin and just say, I'm not really enjoying what you do, and and also the moment where she says that I don't always ask for what I want. That's a big thing that it's never really discussed in life on television about like just having that communication between couples and just with women in general of being able to say like, well, no, I've sat in rooms with women where they're like, I've never had an orgasm, and it's like, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about tricks of the trade and things that you can learn. And so having that be a conversation that actually came up on TV, and even having her get to the moment where she was like, bite me, I was like, yes.
I know.
Thank God. Female orgasm for life. Okay.
It was also cool seeing Quentin, though, being so vulnerable because we're so used to seeing the alpha male. He has to be masculine and has to be like the dominator. But in this perspective, you got to see this other side, this like humble side that showed that, men are learning the tricks of the trade as they go too. So
Yeah.
we're all just
We're
humans
all
kind of
learning.
learning. Yeah. So I like that
Person
it was
to
kind of
person.
addressed on both sides. So.
And yeah, he has the great line of like, how can you expect me to improve if you don't tell me what's wrong? Which
Right.
is communication. And I was gonna also add, I love that it was shot that the mom was sexy exiting the bathtub, because that was another thing of like an ageism thing of having
Right.
an older woman be sexy.
Yeah, she
'Cause
totally
that was
embodied
hot. Like her
hers.
getting out the
Yeah.
I was
out
like,
that
she's making me
towel.
uncomfortable. If that was my
I was
mom, I'd be
like-
like, Mom. You
I was
know?
like, this is really
I
hot.
thought that was
I wish I
beautiful.
grew up with a family. No, I'm joking. My mom and my dad are great. But I just, having a sexually open family
Right.
is also just something that's kind of unheard of in America,
Right.
the United States of America. So having that kind of be a dialogue and having it make Alice uncomfortable, but also having her kind of get to a point where she has to accept that that has affected like how she goes about having
Composes
sex. Maybe
herself,
she
right.
does want something a little bit more zesty per se.
And yeah, it's not often older women are shot as sexy.
Exactly.
Yes.
And same with
He's like, no, yes.
No. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
everything you've just said. It just makes me feel good that we did our jobs right, because we had all these conversations
good.
in the script stage
Cool.
and prepping, and all these decisions that you're responding to were very much deliberately planned that way. Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, everything you're saying about Judith. In fact, the first conversation I had to have with Judith was this conversation. You know, because we wanted to make sure that she was comfortable with you know, that element, and she was a rock star. She was just so cool about it. And everyone on that set. You know, Jason and Olivia were so heartbreakingly honest. You know, I mean, the script forced them into a place where, you know, they could have shied away from it, but they didn't. They went right for it. So
yeah.
no, this is all everything you're saying
Wonderful
is I think is very true.
And also just having, you know, a lot of times it's when there is a sexual woman married to a sexual man as well. It's a younger woman being paired with the dad or something like that. So it was nice to see the parents be the exact same age, to have the same type of sexual appetite, because I think we often don't think of, unless they're George Clooney, people in their 50s or even 60s, even 40s sometimes,
Right.
as having like a sex drive. So that was nice to see as well, and to have a really active.
Or you could
Sex
argue
drive.
she had more because she brought Joe essentially
Yeah.
into their.
It's true.
And they flipped the
Oh, yeah.
script on that as well, having the woman have the affair, because I feel like that's the common stereotype I see in a lot of shows, is where the man is always having the affair on the wife. And so to see it switched and how, you know, their dynamic was as a family also
And
interested
the
me.
fact that they also still had a communication about it as well. So it wasn't.
Yeah.
I think a big
It didn't
thing
destroy
with,
them, right?
Yeah, with like cheating and affairs. I'm about to say too much about my personal theories, but like, you know, you get to a certain point, certain age where I think it's okay to have a dialogue about what you need sexually, and if that is being fulfilled within the relationship. That doesn't necessarily mean that a person should just go out and like cheat and do what they want, but having a dialogue, having a Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith relationship may not be the worst thing in the world when you know, reach a certain point in your relationship and the loyalty is ingrained. You know, it's kind of, so I appreciated seeing that kind of side of relationships as well.
Sure.
Being portrayed on television.
Again, communication.
Communication.
There we
What
go.
is the word of the day,
Moral of the
class?
story, guys.
Communication.
And then seeing a man go down on a woman in the background was
Yeah.
really awesome too.
Yeah.
Because you don't ever see that.
I mean, really, it was
Yes, we had some again our background artists in Vancouver were very game. So,
Yeah.
as much as it was in the background, it was pretty prominent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, I know
So-
they
didn't shy
Syfy
away.
Channel, you know, they
went
God bless them.
there.
They let us get away with a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, everything they did that right, skirting that line of not too much, because in terms of what could get away with on
Yes,
television.
exactly.
We might have
Yeah.
even seen some pegging, I think.
What?
Was some pegging?
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 What is that?
Oh, man.
Ooh.
We can't get into that on the air.
Are we all?
I don't even. I can't.
Maybe
even,
they improvise
No?
on that part.
Okay, apparently everyone in the room. It's not just the ladies, because he's giving you.
I think this is
Alright.
a Thai thing.
Is this a guy and girl thing together?
Well,
This
it
is a
looked
touching
like there
thing,
were
or?
some girls taking some guys from behind.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, that did happen.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
It
So
was with the girl. Yeah.
once again, yeah, some very.
Yes, we did. That was staged. Correct. Yes, I didn't know it was called peg.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Now you know.
Learn something
Peg
new every
away,
day,
peg
guys.
away.
I said that this episode would be the sex education episode.
Exactly.
Yeah,
there we are.
Opening doors all over the place.
And apparently that's been our main theme today. What we talked
Yes.
But it was a
there
big
are,
deal.
There are other elements and other
Yes.
characters we do need
Yes,
to get to.
we
because
need
it's
to
a 3
address.
long show.
Although I will say though, how cool is it not to really toot our own horns over here, but like to have this conversation after watching a show on the Sci-Fi Channel versus
Exactly.
say
Yes.
like an HBO or a
Yeah.
Netflix or a Showtime show. I mean,
Right.
this is some real stuff we just talked about. Or you talked about, and it's just. You know, that's what's so cool about The Magicians, I think.
Breaking boundaries.
Yes.
Oh man.
What now?
Well, we've got now that we've got 10
we're
minutes
gonna-
left.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
Let's get into
Speed
Penny real
through.
quick. Let's get into the Netherlands. What do we think about Penny kind of exploring this world of this kind of part of Fillory that even Quentin doesn't really know about?
I thought it was really cool, and I actually would love, Josh, if you could talk about. I noticed, if you guys noticed, everything was
exactly a lot of
little
and the lighting,
colors, taking shots. Yeah.
Yes, well, everyone on behind the scenes knows this, but yeah, like my first pitch for the Netherlands was to use Dutch angles because I was looking at all the different fillery and looking at the difference between the world of break bills and the world the so-called the real world, and how Ellie, the DP, Ellie Smokin, a brilliant guy, he sort of differentiated all the looks in different ways with color, with camera styles, in terms of handheld versus elegant, in terms of bright colors versus muted colors. So we found this great location for the Netherlands, this place at University of British Columbia, with that sort of amphitheater where we kind of augmented it with visual effects. But for me, it was like I felt like there should have been some kind of visual stamp on the Netherlands. So I pitched everyone the idea of Dutch angles, and they thought it was great. So we just went with it, and it's like you make a choice, and thankfully everyone seems to really enjoy it and dig it.
It looked great.
It feels like
it looked like a dreamscape to me. Like I felt like it was another realm. So that's what I really liked about the angles and the lighting.
Yeah, not only the Dutch angles, but also the color palette as well.
Yeah, and actually Ellie used uncoated lenses. They're the same types of lenses that Spielberg used in the Normandy sequence in Saving Private Ryan. It gives you really sort of high contrast, and it almost desaturates it as you're shooting it, so it has that kind of like stark, like almost black and white, but you still see colors. So yeah, that was his lens choice. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, let's talk about moving on a little bit. Let's talk about kind of what Julia and Richard are up to. They've got this kind of this social circle coming over, and of course, as it turns out, Katie is one of these people, much to Julia's chagrin. But it turns out that as Julia and Katie are trying to level up and learn these spells, the rest of the group are working on this kind of time magic. Yeah. And Richard is trying to break the glass ceiling of magic. Right. Do we think he's getting maybe a little power hungry?
I wrote that. Power hungry.
But for good reason.
No, it's one of those we've talked about this.
I'm gonna go debatable on this.
Too many times on this show of like, let's fix cancer, let's fix this. We've learned it doesn't work.
That's true, but that doesn't take away that it's for good intention.
Oh, sure.
I don't know. I'm getting a bad feeling. No.
Let's not go there.
No.
I was hoping maybe Richard wouldn't be consumed by magic, because it seems like that's like what eventually happens to everyone.
Right,
like,
exactly.
There's always this one thing that they just want to try, that if they just can do this, then everything will be okay. But
that was what I thought when he said that. I'm like, you're just like everyone else now.
You're just like everyone else. But I best of luck, and I am grateful that he's attempting it in a way that doesn't necessarily involve like consuming someone else or using someone else. It is the whole idea of summoning a god, and we'll see where that goes and how successful that is, and how probably awful it's going to eventually be.
That's
sounds good on paper. In theory,
It was nice. I think one of us predicted that Katie and Julia would end up together. Somebody said that.
Who was it? Was it you?
I know. I can't remember if it was me or you.
I thought they were going to team up to go get
Marina.
Yeah, so
I think
this is baby steps.
Yeah,
they're heading towards that.
So that was nice to see. It's nice to see them finally, because we missed Katie for like the past 2 episodes.
Yeah, and
they
you
had
got
a little
to see
bit
that.
Of communication too.
Yeah, and they also got to talk about Katie's mom's death. So I thought that was kind of a good thing, so they could reconcile and kind of work together, because I think they both have that edge, and that just they're very dynamic characters. So I feel like when their powers are joined together, they're going to be so much more powerful than they are apart.
Captain Planet.
When the powers combine.
The rings together.
Yes.
So I'm a big old nerd, y'all. Sorry.
Well, yeah,
I like that you took it there.
I love, this concept of him trying to summon a god. Because that's not going to end.
It's not going to end well.
I just, no.
But let's...
I was also happy to see a trans person being cast. So that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
We noticed. We liked it.
Sure. And now let's talk, not to jump too abruptly, but let's talk about what's happening with Elliot and Margot, which is kind of, it seems lower stakes comparatively speaking. We find out that one of Margot's exes has been draining her chi, draining her life force to create a golem, or as they call it, a Margolem.
A sex doll.
Basically just a realistic
How many
sex
of those
doll.
would there be in reality, though? Like a million, right?
That's true. That's a good point.
Like,
That's a
head
good
off to
point.
work today, my dear, make
creepy.
us some money.
Well, that was kind of like a nice little multiplicity.
Yes, it was.
There we go.
And she kept her duplicate, so
Right.
even more like a
Right.
multiplicity. 'Cause why did she keep her around?
I was curious as to whether or not the Margolem could speak.
It didn't
I
seem
don't
like
think
it,
she
yeah.
can. Can she speak?
I think she said a little something.
She can
yeah.
speak, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
She's not well
she's not
thought
particularly
entirely.
a wordy
Yeah.
individual. Yes. I mean, intellectually, I wouldn't
Thoughts, yeah.
necessarily,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
put her up there with
Right.
the greats. But
Yeah.
no, she can speak.
Real quick, can you talk about kind of the logistics of shooting, with a body double and shooting kind of those scenes?
Yeah, well, Summer was really game because we found a body double who played the Margolem, and and obviously in the split screen sequences we had to make sure that we had the camera in the right place. We locked it down. And then in the middle of the take we would lock the camera down, and then Summer would change into the other character and come back. But it helped Summer to have somebody there to play too. So we had somebody actually dressed in the Margolem costume when Summer was playing Margot, and vice versa, so that Summer could always play to somebody who actually was dressed as the other character.
Like
Right.
Orphan Black.
And it reminded me a little of kind of multiplicity as I was watching it, because she does kind of play the Margolem with this sort of kind of innocence that's where like it doesn't quite know what's
Strange
going on.
Sexual
Right,
innocence.
right. But as kind of fun and as silly and as lighthearted as this subplot was, it did lead to a very real moment of breakthrough for Elliot, where he says that something might really be broken with him. But of course, he's admitting it to the Margolem, and who responds with sex the only way she knows how.
Yes.
And then just real quick moves on when the real Margot shows up.
Yeah.
What do we
Even
think of this moment with Elliot?
Well, he even changed like how he approached her, because when he first approached her, he was like, "Hey, baby, got your favorites," and then when the real Margot showed up, it's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, bitch!"
Love that.
You definitely see that there is a cover even with Margot when it comes to Elliot, that he's just kind of naturally guarded.
Sure.
And so a little damaged because of the
Give him a
beast.
hug.
Yeah, that's what I was
Wanna give him a
thinking.
hug.
Right?
The residual
it's okay.
effects of Mike,
Right, exactly.
That's what's going on.
Poor Elliot. Yeah, he's doing
Poor
lines.
guy.
He's doing lines with the golem
Yeah.
to cope with all
But
this.
that's not out of his like wheelhouse.
But I feel like it's being
He's just in a
exacerbated.
drug state,
Yeah.
though. He's
yeah.
like
He's just numbing
is
himself
fun,
for the feelings.
but he's numb. Yeah, he's
yeah,
numb
I think
right
when
now.
it gets to the point where he's sitting there with this whole catastrophe that Margot's kind of going through, where
Right.
she could die. Like
Right.
getting your chi drained isn't like a cute little thing.
Right. Serious
If this were
business.
Lost Girl, she'd be dead.
Yeah.
But it's a serious situation, and he just is so numb he can't take it seriously.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They need to communicate. There you go. That's the one pair that did not communicate properly.
They communicated a little bit.
bit.
Margot
He
did.
tried.
She did.
I'm glad she
Yeah.
came out to him and was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I need your help on this."
And
I'm
he
like,
did attempt to communicate back.
Yeah.
He just communicated to the wrong Margot.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But he should have said
exactly.
something again. Been like, "All right, bitch, we need to talk."
Well, he just
Maybe
got
later.
tongued by his best friend, and he wasn't expecting that.
Right, that might have thrown him off.
I
a
don't know.
little.
We don't know the full details of their relationship.
That's
so.
also true.
I think the look of shock on his face.
He was surprised.
Said a lot, yeah.
Right, that's true.
It's not mutual.
Yeah, exactly.
They're a couple on the exterior, not quite behind
Maybe
closed doors.
Maybe they're into group, but not.
There you go. Not just each other.
Interesting. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this hour
We're
just
getting nods
flew
over here.
right
No,
by.
I like hearing all these theories. These are all good. No, I'm just happy that again everything you say. These are decisions that actors and directors and everyone behind the scenes, we all make these decisions in a vacuum, and we hope that you respond. And it's just nice to hear your response, because it's definitely everything we were hoping you would respond to.
But I was
Absolutely.
just going to
Job
say,
well
what's it
done.
like to hear? Well, I mean, with social media and Twitter, you can see what the fans are saying. What is it like getting almost instantaneous feedback on what you've put out there?
It's great. It's a wonderful kind of world in that sense. You can sort of take the pulse of the world. But I actually love what you guys are doing, because this is a very to deconstruct the episode, to give it a real review, to give it like this kind of attention. It's
Thank you.
You can't fit this in a tweet.
And you know,
Not enough characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Only the
We
YouTube
could-
link. We can fit that.
We can sit
Exactly. Yeah.
we can sit here and extrapolate all of these theories for hours and hours, but sadly we are out of time. Josh, thank you so much.
My
for
pleasure. Thank you.
joining us.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
Any parting words? What the people can look out for you? for
Oh
work?
yeah, I guess I have to do my social media rundown.
Plug it.
Yes.
Plug it.
I'm the Joshua Butler on Twitter and Instagram, and Joshua Butler. You can find me on Facebook, and I'll stay in touch.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. Guys, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrian Snow. I don't know what predictions we'll be able to do it. Sorry, too late.
Right.
It's gonna be crazy. That's what.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yes, once again, I'm Samantha Benitz. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Samantha_Benitz.
And yes, once again, you can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's KARIDLANE.
And as always, you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Ty Matthews PMA, as well as various other after shows. Monday Night Raw right before this one, Monday nights, as well as Second Chance season finale, this Sunday, and Lucha Underground on Thursdays. But we'll be right back here, same time, same channel, next week, talking episode 11 of The Magicians. But until then, guys, peace!
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.